If you buy the grand strategic division, it actually still works that Europe is incredibly important, because then you have to delegate and say the Balkans are yours, we'll help, we'll be secondarily important, but you will be the spearhead. The Middle East and North Africa, that's you, that's your backyard. You keep telling us you can do all these things and you have this tremendous economic wherewithal despite all your problems. If you can't do your backyard, we'll take care of Mexico, you worry about North Africa. Isn't there somewhere in here, Rem, a grand deal that then filters down, which is exactly on these lines where we don't have to talk about everybody mattering or not mattering? Because suddenly that pivot then, Europe becomes a pivotal part of the narrative of a pivot, and then ironically becomes important in that way. The people, the Asia firsters, say, well, we can't really do this without Europe taking the lead. But Rem, my question to you is psychological out of this. That requires America to be supportive but secondary in Europe, something the United States hasn't had to do for a very, very long time. And it requires Europe to take the lead and stop critiquing American policy as though it were a movie, passively talking about it, but actually proactively getting out there and then saying to the Americans, now you support us. Isn't that a heck of a psychological jump?
Well, I think it is a psychological jump, and I'm not really sure that politics in the United States has reached that point yet where it can accept that it has delegated European security and the Middle East. I mean, we're talking about the Middle East as if it's only Europe's backyard, but it obviously it's not. North Africa, perhaps, but the United States still sees itself as very much a European power, as an element to the European power equation, and for all the right reasons. And I think it's only logical that the United States would stay involved. That there's a lot of gloom these days about the future of NATO with respect to the Libya operation. The Libya operation was tremendously troubled, but what it did show is that the United States is still very much willing and necessary to support Europeans in able to handle their backyard. So I wouldn't go that far and say, well, the grand strategic bargain is that Europe is delegated its backyard, and that is the primary interest for the transatlantic relationship to work. On top of that, I'd also say Europe has much more to offer. Individual European states have much more to offer simply than taking care of the backyard, whether it's the relationship with Russia or North Africa and the Middle East. I'm thinking of the bridge that Europe can play in managing the relationship with an emerging China. The fact that Europe can be sort of that balancing force, and as well, individual European states, for cultural and historical reasons, have links to the Indian Ocean rim that the United States doesn't. And there's an opportunity for new bargains to be struck as well. I'm thinking, especially with respect to the Netherlands, for instance, the relationship with Indonesia, which has become prime real estate in this geostrategic rebalancing. And in this country, in the Netherlands, there is a strong hesitancy to see that roll with Indonesia in these terms, but I'm sure that from the United States it would find a leaning ear when it comes to dealing with this new area of geopolitical power. And to your point, General, with respect to values, I wholeheartedly agree. Values are fundamentally important to the transatlantic relation, but they're not enough. They're the default, yes, and we should cherish them, nourish them, underline them. But I'm getting tired that NATO, for instance, produces documents that only reflect these values and doesn't do anything beyond that. I'm thinking, for instance, on the Declaration of Alliance Solidarity. We need to move beyond the values.